Have you ever flown through the sky and felt like something was watching you? Not a person, not a plane, but something ancient, intelligent and hungry. What if I told you there's a place in the world where reality bends, time warps, and people vanish without a trace? And I flew straight into it. The Bermuda Triangle isn't just a myth, it's a gateway. And what I saw inside changed me forever. Planes that shouldn't fly, voices that don't belong to anything human, doors that lead to places no one should ever see. Why was I chosen? What's on the other side of that sky? And more importantly, what followed me back? If you're ready to hear everything, every horrifying second, I need you to press that like button right now and make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you're going to want to watch this until the end. They told me not to fly through it alone. They warned me in casual tones at first, like it was just some kind of myth shared between pilots over whiskey and long-haul fatigue. But then the tone shifted, grew quiet, serious, like an unspoken rule that veteran flyers had all agreed never to break. They spoke of radios going dead, of compasses spinning wild, of planes disappearing off radar without even the courtesy of a mayday call. And they always ended with the same look in their eyes, hollow and distant, like they'd seen something they couldn't explain but couldn't forget either. I thought they were just trying to scare the new guy, haze the rookie, and I laughed it off the first few times. But that was before I got the call from Atlantic Freight Services, asking me to ferry a private shipment from Fort Lauderdale to San Juan, the flight path cutting right through the infamous Bermuda Triangle. I hesitated for half a second before saying yes. Because honestly, I needed the money. Student loan debt doesn't pay itself, and flying had always been my escape. Up there in the clouds with nothing but the hum of the engines and the endless blue stretching out forever. I convinced myself the triangle was just ocean and sky like anywhere else. Just water and superstition. Just ghost stories and compass errors. But I couldn't shake the words of that old pilot at the bar, the one who leaned in and whispered, "Don't follow the lights if you see them, son, and don't listen when they start to talk." Whatever that meant. I brushed it off, but packed a few extra flares just in case. The plane was a twin-engine turboprop, solid and reliable. Just me, the cargo, and the sky. The first hour was smooth, clear skies, mild tailwind. But somewhere past the halfway mark, I noticed the altimeter was twitching slightly. Not much, but enough to catch my attention. Then the radio crackled. A voice half garbled came through saying something like, "Turn. Back. Too late." Then silence. Pure dead silence. I tried to respond, but nothing. Not even static. Just that eerie, absolute quiet. I glanced at the compass and saw it slowly spinning counterclockwise like it was possessed. I tapped it, then hit it, but it just kept turning like it had lost its mind. And then the clouds rolled in. Not gradually, not naturally. They just seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Thick, grey, choking fog that swallowed the sunlight and turned everything into dull silver and shadow. Visibility dropped to nearly nothing. I engaged the autopilot and pulled out the backup instruments, but they were acting strange too, lagging, blinking, then freezing. I was flying blind. No ground control, no radar, no nav system, just instinct and fear now. And that's when I saw the lights, pale blue orbs dancing in the clouds like they were alive, weaving and circling the plane like curious animals. Too fast to be aircraft, too fluid to be drones. They shimmered and pulsed, and suddenly I remembered the old man's words. Don't follow the lights. But they weren't waiting for me to follow. They were coming closer. I felt a pressure in my skull like something was squeezing my thoughts, like my own mind wasn't mine anymore. Then the cargo started shifting in the back. Even though it was strapped tight, I heard metal groaning and something knocking against the walls from inside. I swore I sealed it. The manifest said electronics. But it felt heavier than that. Wrong somehow. And now it was moving, pounding, and the lights outside grew brighter, almost blinding now, bathing the cockpit in a cold glow. I closed my eyes and gripped the controls, praying, breathing hard. Then everything stopped. The lights vanished. The fog lifted in seconds. and I was flying over calm, crystal blue water like nothing had happened. The compass was working. The radio chirped back to life. Ground control welcomed me like nothing was wrong, like I hadn't just flown through some kind of waking nightmare. But when I landed in San Juan and checked the cargo, the crate was empty, not damaged, not broken, just open. The seals still intact, but nothing inside, no electronics, no nothing. And when I looked into the back of the hold, I swear to you, I saw a wet footprint, just one, right in the center of the metal floor, and I've never flown that route again since. But every night since then, at exactly 2:37 a.m., my cockpit radio comes on by itself and whispers a voice I don't recognize, a voice that says, "Turn back, too late." I didn't sleep the night after the first flight. I sat on the edge of my motel bed in San Juan, staring at the wall while the voice repeated in my head like a broken tape recorder. Turn back, too late, over and over again. And every time I blinked, I saw those blue lights dancing in the clouds, taunting me. I could still feel the pressure in my head, like fingers pressing just behind my eyes. I told myself it was just altitude sickness, or stress, or turbulence. I even tried convincing myself I dreamed the whole thing. But when I returned to the hangar and found the cargo manifest had been deleted from the system with no backup, no paperwork, no signature, nothing, just an empty log where my flight should have been, I knew something wasn't right. I asked the mechanics if anyone had seen who took the crate out, but they looked at me like I was crazy, said the plane landed empty, no cargo on board, no signs of it ever being there. And when I insisted, they got real quiet. One of them finally said, "That plane? It was locked up all night. Nobody's touched it," and walked away without another word. I should have left then, should have booked a commercial flight home and never looked back. But something pulled me back to the cockpit. Maybe curiosity, maybe madness. But I felt like I had to know what happened, had to prove I wasn't losing my mind. So I called in another job, one headed back toward the States. A return haul with a half-empty load and a payout I couldn't ignore. And when dispatch gave me the route, it traced right through the triangle again. I almost said no. My finger hovered over the button, but I hit accept. Something inside me needed to go back, not for answers, but for closure. The flight started calm, sunny skies, smooth takeoff, but about an hour in, I noticed the clouds forming on the horizon, long fingers of grey stretching across the ocean like they were reaching for me. I checked the radar, clear, nothing in sight, but my gut screamed otherwise. The instruments stayed steady. Everything read normal, too normal, almost like they were lying. I adjusted altitude, changed heading, tried to bypass the cloud line, but it followed. No matter what direction I took, it always found me. And then the air grew cold, way too cold for sea level. Frost formed on the inside of the windshield, and I watched my breath fog in the cockpit. Then came the sound, low at first, like a hum or a vibration deep in the fuselage. But it grew louder, more like chanting, a rhythmic pulse of voices that didn't sound human, like they were speaking a language I wasn't meant to hear. My hands locked on the yoke, and I realized I couldn't move, not even my fingers. My whole body frozen stiff while my mind screamed in silence. The plane tilted on its own, banking left hard toward the clouds, instruments flashing red, altitude plummeting, and I could do nothing but stare as those same blue lights emerged from the mist ahead. Only now they were bigger, more vibrant, more alive, swirling faster, forming a shape, a doorway in the sky opening like a mouth. The chanting grew deafening, layered voices, deep and ancient, and I saw a figure step out of the light, standing on thin air just ahead of the plane, tall, skeletal, with glowing eyes and a robe made of shadows that seemed to ripple with stars. It raised one hand and everything stopped. Just stopped. The engines silenced. The sky froze. The plane hung in the air like time itself was on pause. And then it spoke. Not out loud, but inside my head, saying, "You returned, broken one. Do you seek what was taken or what waits beyond?" I tried to speak, tried to answer, but I couldn't form thoughts. It was like my mind was unraveling, pulling apart at the seams. Memories I'd forgotten began pouring back in. Things I'd never lived, people I'd never met, voices whispering secrets I couldn't understand. And just before I blacked out, I saw it open a second door in the sky. Not light this time, but darkness, swirling void deeper than black, and something inside it moved, something massive with too many eyes and too many mouths. And I understood. I was being offered to it. The figure had brought me as tribute. But before it could finish, the cockpit filled with blinding light. Not blue, but golden, sharp and hot like the sun itself. And everything screamed. The creature, the lights, the air itself. And then I was falling, spinning, the plane rattling like it was tearing apart, alarms blaring, metal groaning. And just before we hit the water, I pulled the stick back with all my strength and blacked out. I woke up floating 20 feet above the ocean, the plane hovering still, engines dead, surrounded by blue fire that didn't burn, just shimmered around the wings like protection. I don't remember landing, just the taste of salt in my mouth and the sound of the ocean and the sense that something was still watching from below. I radioed for help and was rescued hours later, found drifting in the life raft with no signs of the plane. And when I checked my flight recorder, it was filled with static, except for one message, repeated over and over. "You have seen it now, and it sees you." I couldn't explain it to the rescue team. How could I? How do you describe floating mid-air in a dead plane while fire danced around you like a shield? How do you tell men in uniforms that a shadow with a galaxy in its robe offered you to something buried in a black hole sky? I told them I lost power and ejected, lied through clenched teeth as they pulled me from the raft, but they knew something was wrong. They saw it in my face, heard it in the tremble in my voice, and when they checked my vitals, they whispered to each other, said my blood pressure was too low, my heart rate too steady, too calm for a man who just survived a crash. They asked about the aircraft, but I couldn't answer. The plane was gone, not sunken, not crashed, just erased. I went home after that, tried to quit flying, tried to live a normal life. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that door, the second one, the dark one, and something behind it watching. I started having nightmares, violent ones, too real to be dreams. Sometimes I'd wake up gasping with seawater on my lips. Other times I'd find lights flickering and my radio turning on by itself at exactly 2:37 a.m., whispering voices in that same language, the same chant I'd heard in the sky. I checked myself into a hospital once, told the doctor I was hearing things, seeing things. He smiled politely and gave me pills, said I had PTSD, said it was trauma from the crash. But when I left his office, I found something in the parking lot that made my blood freeze. Scratched into the hood of my car with something sharp were 3 words: "It's not over." I looked around, but no one was there. No cameras, no witnesses, just those words gleaming in the sunlight. I moved the next day, changed my name, changed my job. But the messages followed. Notes slipped under my door with coordinates, drawings of the lights, of the robed figure, of the door, and always a time, 2:37 a.m., written in the margins. One night, unable to sleep, I followed one of the coordinates to an old hangar on the edge of a forgotten airfield, and inside, sitting beneath a tarp, coated in dust and cobwebs, was my plane, the one that disappeared, not crashed, not burned, just there, like someone placed it down gently, untouched. I opened the hatch and climbed inside, hands trembling, and everything was exactly as I left it. My jacket still hanging on the back of the seat, my flight log open on the last entry, and the same single wet footprint on the cargo floor. But this time, there was something else, something new. A photograph taped to the control panel, one I had never seen before. It was a picture of me, standing in front of the robed figure, in the sky, just like in my vision. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I was smiling, and behind me, the black door was open, and something was reaching through it, touching my shoulder with fingers like smoke. I dropped the photo and stumbled out of the cockpit, heart pounding. I didn't know if I was going insane or if something was playing with me. Dragging me back, I started running tests on the flight recorder, sent it to a private lab, told them it was from a drone experiment. A week later, they contacted me and said it wasn't just static on the file. It was data, structured, patterned, like code, like someone or something was trying to embed a message directly into the tape. They tried decoding it and found one frame, one image, buried deep in the sound waves. And when they sent it to me, I nearly collapsed. It was another photograph, this one older, yellowed, from the 1950s. A military plane flying through clouds, same lights around it, same figure ahead, same black door behind, and scrawled in the corner were coordinates matching mine, with the words "second offering failed" written in red ink. I started researching disappearances in the triangle, digging into military files, declassified documents, old pilot reports, and the deeper I went, the worse it got. Stories of entire squadrons vanishing, of survivors speaking in unknown tongues before clawing their eyes out, of aircraft found floating upside down in the sky, dead pilots inside with smiles carved into their faces, and the common thread in every report: 2:37 a.m., always that exact time, like it was the moment the sky thinned just enough for them to reach through. Then last night, the worst happened. I was asleep when my apartment lights flickered, and I woke to find my living room filled with fog, not smoke. Fog, like what I flew through that first time. And sitting in my armchair was the figure, not just a vision, not a dream. It was there, real, massive, pressing against the room like gravity itself warped around it. And in its lap was another photo. Me, now, sitting across from it, with the black door open wide behind me. And this time, I wasn't smiling, I was screaming. And from the kitchen, something started pounding on the inside of the cabinets like it was trapped there. I ran, grabbed my keys, drove until the gaslight blinked on. But the fog followed. Not outside, not behind, but inside my head. Like it had nested there, waiting. And now I can't hear silence anymore, just the whisper of that chant under every sound, low and slow and patient. And tonight, just after midnight, I found a fresh note on my windshield, written in perfect block letters: "The final flight is ready. You cannot hide from the sky." I didn't answer the message, didn't go back to the hangar, didn't even leave my room for 2 days. I just sat there staring at the windows with the lights off and the TV playing static. Not even plugged in, just static. The world outside felt wrong, like everything had shifted a few degrees to the left, and I was the only one who noticed. My phone rang exactly at 2:37 a.m. the following night, and I didn't answer it. But the voicemail that followed wasn't a voice. It was the sound of an engine humming. My engine, the one from the plane that vanished. I recognized the subtle vibrations, the rhythm of the sputter in the left turbine. And layered beneath it, like a whisper behind a wall, was the chanting again. That same inhuman chorus growing louder each time I played it back. I tried deleting it, but it wouldn't erase. Even when I smashed the phone and threw it in the river, it kept ringing in my ears. I realized then that running wasn't going to work. It had never been about running. They'd already marked me, already carved my name into some ledger in a place I couldn't see. The only thing left was to face it, to fly again, to finish whatever this was. So I drove back to the hangar, hoping it was gone, hoping the plane had disappeared again, and I could pretend it was all just madness. But it was there, cleaner than before, like someone had detailed it. The engines humming softly as if it had never been turned off. The hangar doors wide open like an invitation. I climbed inside and found the cockpit powered. No key, no startup process. Just everything ready. Flight path preloaded. coordinates glowing on the screen in symbols I didn't recognize but understood instinctively. And when I looked out the windshield, I didn't see the runway anymore. I saw the ocean, vast and black and breathing, stretching forever in all directions. I don't remember taxiing, don't remember taking off, but suddenly I was in the sky, clouds rushing past, stars above twisting in patterns I knew weren't natural, shapes forming in constellations that pulsed with each beat of my heart. And then the voice returned, no longer fragmented, no longer whispering. It spoke clearly, directly into my skull. You have crossed the veil willingly. You are the final gate. I tried asking what that meant, but my mouth wouldn't open. My hands moved on their own, adjusting knobs, turning switches I didn't recognize. And the plane responded like it was alive, like it was guiding me towards something ancient and enormous, just beyond the curve of the world. And then I saw it, rising from the sea like a monument built by time itself, a tower made of rusted steel and living bone, reaching into the clouds, pulsing with blue fire, the lights circling its spire like orbiting moons, and at its base, thousands of shapes moved, not people, not creatures, just silhouettes writhing and reaching upward, as if begging to be freed or consumed, and circling above it, slowly, patiently, was the figure in the robe, larger than before, its eyes now entire suns burning through the sky, and it spoke again. The gate must open, and through you, the others will follow. I tried pulling away, tried turning the plane around, but the yoke locked in place, and the door appeared again in front of the nose, swirling open like an eye awakening. And from within came the pressure, crushing, suffocating, like every atom in my body was being unraveled and reassembled in a different order. I screamed, but no sound came out, and in the moment before contact, I saw the cockpit glass reflect something behind me. Another me, strapped into the co-pilot seat, rotting, staring with empty eyes, mouth stitched shut with threads of gold. And then we passed through. No impact, just silence, utter and complete, like I was suspended in a void beyond time, where even thought moved like syrup, and around me floated remnants of other flights, wings from old bombers, frozen bodies in parachutes, a child's toy drifting in the dark, all of it orbiting a single impossible object, the heart of the triangle, a sphere of writhing mass covered in mouths and eyes, each one whispering a different story, each one begging to be heard, and at the center of it all was the final door, the last gate, not light, not dark, but absence, like a hole in reality itself, and the voice said, "Offer accepted," and I felt myself pulled toward it, body unraveling, skin separating from bone, memory fading like fog, and then, a flash, a scream not mine, and suddenly I was somewhere else, on the ground, sand beneath me. The plane gone, the tower gone, but not forgotten, because now the chanting doesn't stop, not even when I'm awake. It's in the wind, in the hum of the fridge, in the breath of every person who speaks to me, and sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see myself blinking out of sync, like a delay between my thoughts and my reflection, like there are two of me now, like something came back with me, and it's watching, waiting for the final moment, because tonight, I found a new message carved into my ceiling in letters that weren't there yesterday, glowing faintly in the dark. One more flight, and the door will remain open, forever. I tried to pretend it was all in my head, tried to convince myself that the carvings, the sounds, the images in the mirror were just aftershocks of trauma. But there's a limit to denial when your bedroom walls sweat salt water and your dreams bleed into waking life. Every clock I own now resets itself to 2:37 a.m., no matter the time zone, no matter the batteries, just that moment, over and over. And every night at that exact time, I hear a knock at the door. Not my apartment door, not the front entrance, but the door inside my head, the one I saw in the sky, the one I flew toward. And the knock is getting louder, more urgent, like whatever's behind it is tired of waiting. I boarded up my windows, disconnected from everyone, and still the world finds a way to show me. sometimes through static on a stranger's television, sometimes in the cries of birds flying in circles above my building, sometimes in the faces of people passing me on the street who momentarily flicker, their eyes replaced by endless sky, their mouths whispering the chant, "I'm not alone anymore. I don't just feel watched. I feel possessed, like I'm a passenger in my own body." And it all reached a breaking point 2 nights ago when I woke up outside, standing in front of a small airstrip miles from town, barefoot, covered in seaweed, clutching a flight helmet I hadn't seen since my first encounter. And parked at the end of the runway was the plane, waiting, glowing faintly with a sick blue light, a wind turbine spinning slowly without any breeze. I knew what it wanted, knew this was the final flight, the true crossing, the opening of the gate that should never be opened. But I also knew that if I ran again, it wouldn't just follow, it would come through. And if that happened, others would suffer, more than I could imagine. So I got in, strapping myself down, the cockpit sealing itself without my touch, the controls humming as if they recognized me, and the world outside shifted, twisted, folded in on itself until I was no longer flying over land or sea, but over memory, over time, over everything that ever was. A spiral of existence unfolding beneath me like a map drawn in lightning. And ahead, the door pulsed with light, the color of silence, the shape of hunger. And I remembered the words, "One more flight, and the door will remain open forever." And I realized what they wanted. Not just a gatekeeper, not just a witness, but a sacrifice, a pilot to fly beyond and stay there, to keep the path lit, to be the bridge. And suddenly I saw them, the others, the pilots from before, drifting through the void, bound in place, their aircraft orbiting the core, their faces frozen in agony and awe. And I heard their thoughts as my craft joined the formation, each one repeating the same message in 100 languages. "Don't follow, don't enter, it never ends." And still, I couldn't stop. The controls ignored me, the engines surged ahead, and the final door opened wide. Not like before, not small, not hidden, but endless, swallowing stars, tearing through time. And I passed through, not as a man, not even as flesh, but as a memory stretched across space, torn into sound. And on the other side was a throne of wings and eyes and teeth, built from machines and bone. And at its base, the figure waited, taller than worlds, its face now visible, my own, grinning, hollow, welcoming. And it spoke not with words, but with knowledge. And in that moment, I understood everything. The origin of the triangle, the hunger beyond it, the bargain struck by those desperate to escape death. And I was their next link, their offering, their key. I felt myself torn apart and reassembled in pieces. And when I screamed, it wasn't fear. It was truth, absolute and ancient. And then I was falling back into my body, waking in the cockpit, the ocean below, the sky burning red, and a voice on the radio repeating my name in 1,000 tones, welcoming me home. And I landed somehow, not by skill, not by physics, but by will alone. And the hangar door opened as I taxied in, and I realized I wasn't alone in the plane anymore. Something sat behind me, breathing softly, patiently, waiting for me to turn around. And I didn't. I walked away, out into the sunlight, pretending I was free, but I wasn't, and I'm not, because now, when I look at the world, I don't see it the way others do. I see the cracks, the seams, the stitching of reality wearing thin, and I see the doors, so many doors, hidden in the sky, in mirrors, in silence, all waiting for someone to open them. And I hear the voice even now, as I write this, telling me it's time to fly again, time to let them through, time to be more than human. And maybe I will. Maybe the next time you see a plane vanish in the Bermuda Triangle, it won't be an accident. Maybe it'll be me, guiding them, welcoming them, helping them cross. Because I'm not just a pilot anymore. I'm the path. And soon, you'll hear it too. That knock at 2:37 a.m. And when you do, don't answer. Please, don't answer. Because once that door opens, it never truly closes again.